Welcome to the Rylee June Show. I am your host, Rylee June, intuition master coach and spiritual activator. This podcast is here to support you on your growth and ascension journey, for those new to learning about their energy and for light leaders to set a standard in their work and practices within the industry. Running a multi-six-figure business as a light leader comes with great responsibility. And as I expand my work into the corners of the globe to help others reconnect with who they truly are, just know your time spent here with me is held sacredly. And for light leaders, it's time to show up. We have a massive mission to raise the awareness of human consciousness in our globe. So let's get to work. Hello, beautiful souls. I am so excited for today's episode. I have a special guest to share with you, Christina DeFranco. And today we're going to be diving into how trusting in your nudges, really allowing yourself to face the uncomfortableness of whatever you are challenged by, is not only a mirror showing you where you get to pivot and change in your life to follow that intuitive guidance that is leading and guiding you to your greatness, but the moments of synchronicity that come when facing those challenges, when seeing them as mirrors, when taking courageous actions, not confident actions, courageous actions. Courage is what leads you to the confidence that you are seeking. And so I am going to just turn this over to Christina. Before I do, I want to remind you that we have the Christmas Love Project going on right now, which is a annual fundraiser that I do in terms of raising money for single parents to grant Christmas miracles, and we need your help. So donate, or at the very least, please share the cause. If you follow me on Instagram, the post is there in my feed. You can reach out to me and I'll send you all the things you need to know, as well as on Facebook. There's usually a link there for you as well. So I'm really excited about this. When I'm recording this on the 23rd, we raised just over $1,200 in a little bit over a week. And this by far beats our record. So I'm super, super excited about this. We do a minimum of $1,500 donations per family. And this year we have had 8 nominees roll in. So there are families that need your help. And I know we get to do this together. So I am asking for your love and your support. All right, we're going to dive in. I know a lot of you are coming into December, into the new year with goals and visions of who you're going to be, another year of striving for your greatness. And so this episode is coming at the perfect divine time to really help you to see and understand where the guidance and the mirrors are reflecting back to you right now in your life. So I'm going to turn this over to the interview. I hope you enjoy this. And please rate and review this podcast. Help us to spread this message near and far by leaving us a 5-star review and what you think of all that has transpired in this episode. All right, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I am so excited to have Christina with us today in session. We are going to be diving into all the things of how trusting yourself and developing confidence and following your goals and your dreams in pursuance of a path forward is it's the name of the game in life. So thank you, Christina, so much for jumping on here with us today. I cannot wait to share you and your world with everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I look forward to such a good, authentic conversation with you.
Yeah. So I want to get started just by letting you have the opportunity to introduce you and your story. Going into it, I would love for you to touch on what has been your favorite part of your journey thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me. I am a business owner. I own 2 different companies. So my first company is a virtual wellness studio. I'm a yoga teacher by trade. And so we predominantly work with women who have chronic pain and women over 50 to help make movement and mindfulness more accessible to them and really allow them to start to tap into their own spirituality. And especially with that age demographic, a lot of them didn't have access or weren't exposed to it as as a younger person that I am is now in the current day and age. So it's really beautiful to help them start to experience these things, and they're wonderful. I love them to bits. That community is my favorite. And then my second company is a creative agency. We work with new business owners to help them empower them to start their own businesses. And what does that look like in terms of building a website and social media and organic marketing, and really starting to put all the pieces together so that you can impact more people and really help get your voice heard. So that's a little bit about what I do in my day to day. I work full time in my businesses now, which is amazing and gives me so much joy each and every day. I think one of the most transitional pieces of my story is that in 2020, February of 2020, I dropped out of med school. I was in med school full time, and they came to me and they said, look, if you want to be here, you can't work in your businesses. At this time, I only had my first business. I was just working as a yoga teacher, really. And I worked more of as a freelancer. Like, I was working in different studios. I didn't even have my own studio. And they said, like, listen, you need to put all of yourself here. You need to stop the social media. You need to stop the businesses if you want to continue here and really be successful. And I was like, okay. And I walked away, and I kind of like marinated on it for a while, because that had been kind of what society had told me to do, right? I'm the type of person that I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was like, okay, I'll just start a private practice once I become a doctor. And that's how I'll find my little entrepreneurship bug, right? And so it was probably less than a week later, I was sitting in a biology exam, and in the middle of the exam, I had a panic attack. And I said, this is not for me. This is not where I'm meant to be. I want to be teaching yoga. I want to be with my ladies. I want to be where my heart feels full. And I handed the test to the examiner. I was not even done. It was like halfway done. She's like, but you didn't finish. And I go, I'm leaving. And she just looked at me like so confused. I walked out, emptied my locker that was on campus, and drove home and never went back. And I think that was kind of crazy. I had no plan, no idea what I was doing. I was in debt because of school. And I just got a retail job and worked and paid off my debt as I started building my businesses. And that was literally January of 2020.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That is outrageous. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. So first and foremost, that's so wild to me that a school would approach you and say, hey, you either have to be all in here or that's it. Because ultimately school is about growth. Like, of course, there's specific avenues that you go through, but it's like, it's about the growth of yourself, or it's supposed to be. And I just think that's so wild. It's like, oh, I'm just like blown away. I'm like, how does that even happen? That doesn't make sense. But okay. So what was the thing that really drew you to that specific age demographic in regards to what you're teaching with yoga?
Yeah, it's so interesting. When I came out of my yoga teacher training, I was in my second year of university, and I kind of was just talking to local studio owners, trying to get a teaching position somewhere so I could actually start teaching, because it's really hard when you're just out of training to get a job initially because you have no experience. And one of the studios said, oh, like, we have this group of older ladies. They all know each other. They're best friends. They've been together in this class for like years. And the teacher is leaving and we have no one else to fill it. Do you think you could teach it? And I was like, okay. I'm the kind of person that just like, I'll say yes and learn, right? I wasn't trained specifically for that demographic or anything. And it was really interesting. It goes back to a little bit of my story, of my personal story of when I was 7, my grandmother had her second stroke and was put in a nursing home. And so every Saturday we would go visit my grandmother in the nursing home. We'd take her shopping, we would do bingo, all of these fun things with her. And so I kind of grew up in the nursing home environment almost. And I just loved talking to older people, their wisdom, their stories, the things they had to share. And so from the age of 7 to 16, that's how I grew up, was being surrounded by older people. So then when I was put into this class, I think it was a divine connection, really, like I was meant to be there. I fell in love with these ladies. We had such a special bond. We would celebrate our birthdays together, holidays, like everything. It went so much more beyond a once a week yoga class. And they were family, right? And like I call them my grandmas because they were the same age my grandma would be if she was still alive. And it was so beautiful. And so then when I started my own studio, I of course taught many different styles, many different demographics. That was my kind of initial taste. And then when I started my own studio, I didn't even really know I was going to start my own studio. It was really in the pandemic. So January 2020, I quit med school. March of 2020, the pandemic hit. And I'm just like, I lost all of my teaching jobs because all of them were in-person studios. I was like, oh my goodness. So then I was like stuck. I was like, what do I do? And then in June of 2020, so we were in isolation. Everyone was in their own homes. Nothing was happening, at least where I am in Canada. And I kept hearing from those ladies that I had the connection with. They were so isolated, so lonely. There was no movement. They were feeling so stuck energetically and emotionally. And so I started teaching 5 classes a week completely free, just on Zoom, anyone that wanted to join. And I got a lot of these older ladies, and they would tell their friends and they would come, and it became a little bit of a social hour with yoga.
Aww.
And then just throughout the fall and in January of 2021, we kind of like officially launched the virtual studio, and it's grown and skyrocketed from there. But it was so organic and just natural. And I feel so blessed truly to be where we are.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. It just brings me back to so many memories of myself. I have a grandma, or had a grandma, who I would go and spend summers with her for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. And we'd always spend holidays out at her farm, and same thing. I'd go and I'd hang out with all her friends, and she'd take me to the salon she'd go to every week, and we'd go and play bingo. And it's like, I love bingo. It's just the best thing ever.
I love it too.
That's so beautiful, because it's like, in essence, I always talk about how when our loved ones pass, it's for a reason, right? It's not just because they were sick or something happened. It's because they were meant to trigger a ripple effect in our lives. And so when my aunt passed, that was my experience. Is I didn't right away go into dealing with the grieving portion of it. But after a lot of the stuff with my husband settled, that's where I started, where I was like, okay, I got to go back to the beginning of all the trauma that I faced here. And she was the one who led me to a medium, who led me to a scholarship to learn how to do mediumship. And I was like, oh, I don't know what this means for me. I don't even know if I can do this. This is just wild. But if I can at least learn somehow to trust the signs that are coming through from my aunt who had passed, because I know when you leave this place, you don't leave it. Like your body, there was a physical footprint that you left on this earth, and that is memorable. And I learned how to connect, and I learned how to trust the signs, and I learned how to communicate. And now I do what I do today, teaching all things to do with trusting yourself and energy and intuition. But it's because of her passing that got me to this point, and even helped my dad in the way that the things that I do and the way that I speak now and the things that I talk about helped him to heal those relationships of his mom, so my grandma, and his sister, my aunt, passing. And it's their passing that led us down this path. And so I don't know if she passed before you started that or not, but it's like after that passing, it just continued to grow into something where she would bring even more of her to you through other people. And it ended up being this beautiful experience. And I just love that. It's like such a full synchronistic moment. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, it truly is. And I always say, like, it was so hard when she had that second stroke and was placed in the home, because she had lived with us, and it was really like a detachment, right? But if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been exposed to so many wonderful older people and realized that they have so much to share, and so many of them are just left in homes, and their families don't visit or hardly visit. And there's so many reasons for that, but they're such beautiful human beings. And I don't think I would have felt that connection to that older community without that, because I only really knew my grandmother. She was the only older person I had in my life, right? So I think that having happened just kind of started this really eye-opening experience for sure.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so interesting to me, the more that I started going into just studying about energy and cultures and all the things, it's like everywhere outside of the Western civilization, they honor, they respect, and they listen to their elders. And that doesn't mean that they're always right, but it means that they have enough life experience to know what they're talking about. And my husband, whenever there's a room of people, you'll always find him near the oldest ones because he wants to hear their stories. He wants to hear their wisdom. He wants to hear about their lives. And it's so true. It's for whatever reason, I'm in Canada too. So for whatever reason, it's so unfortunate, but a lot of the times our grandparents, they get put into the wayside of people's minds. And it's like, it's such an interesting thing when you think about it, because they got us to this point. There's such a detachment in just the level of connection in families from grandparents and grandchildren now, even, or great grandchildren if they're around. And so when you come back to everything that happened in the world, it brought back some of that perspective of like, oh, I actually get to take the time to spend with my family. Oh, I actually, get to be around people that I love, that care for me or whatever. And so I feel like in the midst of everything that happened, that was one of the things that really came out of a lot of the pandemic, was bringing families back together and then apart, but for the most part together. And it was something that just really, how do I want to word this? It's like, I feel like if we all just sat down and just listened to our grandparents, just talk about their life and talk about their stories, it would be one of those moments where we really got to put our world and our life into perspective, because they really have such a beautiful way of just like being, like, whether they have 5 years left, 10 years left, 1 year left, like they have so much to share. And I feel like, especially in North America, they're really undervalued. And it's interesting because you go anywhere else in the world and it's like the center of every culture. Grandma and grandpa, they're in the kitchen, they're making the meals, they're bringing everybody together, they're singing, they're dancing, they're playing, they're telling old stories, folklores, right? And so it's just such a fascinating, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just a fascinating dynamic of where we are as a North American culture and where literally everybody else seems to be in the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, I don't know, it's so interesting because their lives were so different than where we are now in the world. And you can learn so much from that and have so much appreciation and so much gratitude. And I think it was really what you said is perspective. And I think because we don't take that time, especially where we are, we don't take that time to hear those stories, to really listen, to allow them to share freely and openly and be vulnerable, which a lot of times they never even got. We could really glean so much from it. And it's all about creating that space, right? Slowing down, creating the space, listening to listen rather than to speak. And yeah, it's so interesting for sure.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to bridge the gap here. And so what led you into opening the secondary company in creative marketing for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So I had always known, like once I started my yoga teacher training, I knew I wanted to do something in the yoga space. I didn't know I was going to, like, virtual studios were not really a thing when I started my teacher training. And I was like, I don't know if I'll ever have enough money to have like an actual physical establishment. So I was just kind of working for other people and I was kind of just letting that journey unfold on its own. And what I kind of learned through that process, I was doing a lot of social media and all that stuff. What I kind of learned through that process was I loved building businesses. I thought it was so fun. And I was an elite athlete growing up. So I kind of suppressed a little bit of my creative abilities because I had to give everything I had to my athletics. So because of that, I kind of started to realize through building the businesses, oh, I love designing social graphics. Oh, I love branding. I love the color palettes. I love this. I love that. I love the tech aspect of putting the website together, finding the strategies. And I just loved that whole process. And I said, wow, I kind of wish someone had told me a whole bunch of things when I started. And I was like, why can't I be that person for someone else? And so the second company was really born out of a desire to help empower more women to build their own businesses, whatever stage of life they're in, wherever they're at, whether they want it to be small or big, or they don't even know what they want it to be yet, just to start to explore their own creative flow, their own desires, their own impact that they want to leave in the world. And so I just kind of started it, one, to help me tap into my creativity a little bit more, and two, to help empower other women to do what I was doing, because I saw what I could do once I left all the other studios and started on my own. And I was like, wow, if we just shared more knowledge, more people would see that they could do it too. And I think, especially when I started, there wasn't really that space. It was so male dominated. I started about 5 years ago, and it was so male dominated, and it was so salesy, and it lacked authenticity, which we see so much more of now.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to help more people see that they could do it too if it's something they wanted.
I wanted to take a moment to introduce to you my favorite membership experience of all time. If you haven't already heard or been a part of the Expander membership community, this is a place where anyone on the beginning stages of their journey to finding who you are can come to learn about your energy, intuition, personal growth habits, and self-healing, with others finding themselves too. Our weekly meditations will align you with new habits, guest experts to bring you deeper into your self journey, and monthly coaching and readings with me to guide you into alignment and expansion. Come and join us and swap your Netflix habit with a community healing into self-mastery today. I can't wait to see you inside.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And I equally agree. When I started getting into it, it was like, you didn't know whether to choose between the high level sales man or the spiritual energy flowing woman. And I'm like, where's the middle marker? Like, where do I learn, the roundabouts and the ins and outs? And, sales to me growing up it was so awkward and like weird, and I didn't like it. But then I also learned that it had a lot to do with like my money mindset too. But we talked about that, and it was like, this is the script. This is how you do it. 100%
Yes.
guaranteed close rate every time. I'm like, I don't like scripts. That's so weird. Then you're sitting there like, and then
Yes,
what do you
exactly.
think about that? I'm like, I don't like doing that. And I was a server for 8 years. So I sold based off conversation. So I was like, this is so foreign to me. And it's such a fascinating journey that you've had, where you were so guided by passion and love into a new passion and a new love. And they're both such completely different worlds, yet they mix and marry so beautifully together. I love that. That is so incredible. And it's really a testament to how you don't have to check one box. You don't have to fit one mold, right? Like, you do two completely different things because you love them, and just out of the love of you have from them, that they grow and they expand and they, impact people's lives in so many different ways. And that's really what a lot of what I talk about is the expansion of doing the things that you love and healing the wounds that you have, so you can find what you love and do that, whether that's traveling or that's building a creative business or anything to any degree, right? So I would really love to know from you, if you're willing to go down the train of what in your life was something that you really felt limited by, that you got to go through a healing journey surrounding to get you to where you are today.
Yeah, this is such a great question. I think for me, one of the biggest impacts of where I am now that I really had to work through quite deeply was my family's beliefs around entrepreneurship. When I was little, like young, my dad had a brick and mortar business, and it went bankrupt. And so it completely changed the trajectory of our lives and our financial situation growing up. And it was so difficult, and it forced my mom to work a ton more. And my dad had to give up on his dreams and go back and work a 9 to 5 because he had 2 little girls to support. And so there was a lot of fear in my family around what entrepreneurship was, what working for yourself was, and was it attainable? Can you live off passion, right? And I think for me and my money mindset, which you brought up, was like, it's not possible. Like, you can't do this. Like, it's too dangerous. It's reckless. There's no stability. And I had to really work through that really emotionally and start to shift my mindset into finding the abundance and recognizing that you could have a contract position at 9 to 5 and you could still have no job security. Like, it really just doesn't work like that. It's not so black and white. And so for me, I spent a long time, and I think that's ultimately one of the main factors why I went into medical school, was because I was told, at least if I had that degree, if at least I was a doctor, I could have my entrepreneurship start a private practice, but I was a doctor. And that was the difference. And I said, but I don't want a title to be what defines me and what makes it okay to be an entrepreneur. I want to just go off what I love doing and what I feel connected to and how I can impact people positively. And so I had to do a lot of work around that before I could let that part go. Like, I went to university, I did the years, then I went into med school. So like all that time I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I just kept going through school. I kept doing the things that we were told to do. And I wasn't listening to everyone around me. And that's why I think it's so important, whether it's professional or personal, you are the only one that knows your own desires. You are the only one that can truly listen to what you want and you need. And it's when we suppress those that we live in a lack of fulfillment, when we're unhappy. And so when we start to tap into that, we go, wow, this is the path that I want. It's scary. People are going to be upset with me. That's hard. That's uncomfortable. Man, that is the work, right? And if you can say, I'm ready for the work. This is what I'm here for. I can do it. I believe in myself, or borrow someone else's belief. I believe in all of you. You can do it. Borrow my belief or believe in yourself, right? And then move forward with that. I think there's so many things though. Like, everyone has these hurdles. What's holding you back? What's in your mindset? Is it a money mindset? Is it a lack belief? Is it an abundance problem, right? There's so many things.
Yeah. There's something really important that you said that I want to circle back to. And you said there was a point where you just decided to do the work. And I think that's really important to circle back to, because like you said, whether it's a professional journey or a personal journey that you're on, that's ultimately what it comes down to every single time, is you just have to choose to be willing to do the work, because it is uncomfortable. And a lot of people associate personal development, self-development, healing with pain. It's like, oh, well, I'm already suffering. I don't want to suffer more to get to the green grass. It's like, but no, what you're doing is you're learning to just actually water the dead grass that you're standing on. So you're learning to see that there's something wrong that of your foundation, and not because it's broken, but because you have the ability to heal it, to shift it, to make it better, to love it, to nurture it ultimately. And I really love that. And we actually have very similar stories, because I grew up with both of my parents pursuing entrepreneurship. My mom with a clothing business and my dad with his own concrete company. And I got to see the benefits of both sides of the narrative. I saw one business mismanaged and I saw one completely well managed. But the difference was the one mismanaged was also driven with this idea that I don't need support to help me. And the other one was driven by, I get to have support to help me. And so both businesses ended up being successful in the end. But the start of both of them were in two completely different places, where one looked like it was going to completely go downhill, and did for many years until the support came in. And the other one just thrived from the beginning because they allowed the support. And so for you, your stories really just like speaks to me, because I could have those two. I have had those very two experiences, and they have both become relevant on my journey as yours was with yours. And it's really fascinating to me, because the more that I listen to other people's stories and what got them to where they are, or study high-level entrepreneurs or athletes or celebrities or speakers or whatever, the journeys are all relatively the same. One day they decided to do the work. They had all these limitations from their past, good and bad, to work through. And they equally found that that's exactly what their problem was the formulation of how they were raised or what they were raised around or the speak, and found a new path, borrowed someone else's belief, found their own way, made their own decisions, took the risks, failed and thrived because of those things, and didn't learn to not make the journey mean something bad about themselves. And I think ultimately that's what we get to really take away from every choice, decision, path, thing, shiny thing we decide to go for, is that there's going to be a limitation in the way, but you don't have to stop there. And your support systems, who you have in your life, those you look up to, those you aspire to learn from, whatever that looks like, they're only going to help you thrive if they're in fact rooted in integrity, right? And so I have two more questions for you because I really want to have time. How has integrity played a role in the businesses that you have developed?
Oh, this is huge for me, especially with my first business specifically. It was interesting because, again, I didn't know I was starting this when I was starting it, but I had worked prior to that probably in about 14 different studios. So I had seen the back end of 14 different wellness yoga based studios. And I saw things that I liked that were great, that were really good. And I saw things that were like, oh, I would never do that. Like, oh my goodness. Or it's so interesting because I've been hiring employees to teach different classes into the studio, and my goodness, like in some of the studios I worked in, they paid me $17 an hour, which is like nothing for yoga. It's like really, really bad. And so it was like, because they just wanted huge profit margins, because yoga is quite expensive where I am. And so like one student would pay more than my entire pay for that class. And I would have like 20 students sometimes. So the margins were huge. And it was just like, they just didn't care about you, especially because in yoga, when you work in a studio, you're an independent contractor. So like, you're not really an employee. It's not like going to work and seeing your people and having people there. It's like, you're like a nobody almost, right? You're non-existent. You clock in, clock out for like 1 hour, sometimes more. And so when I started mine, especially when I started hiring people, I said, no, like I want to be so ethical. I want to be so honoring of their time. I send them like a welcome gift basket. Like I want them to understand that regardless of if you're teaching 1 hour a week in my studio, you are part of a family now. Like we are a community. And it's the same thing with like our students, because they're of the older demographic. It's been so hard for them to adjust to the shift of technology as opposed to just driving to a studio. And so, especially when we began, like I was on phone calls with my students, walking them through how to set things up. And like they would call me like stressed and confused. And they're like, I don't know. I asked my neighbor couldn't figure it out. And so I would spend hours just like helping people figure out how this could be accessible for them. And the whole premise of older adults yoga and wellness was to make movement and mindfulness accessible in their bodies. And then I took that a step further and said, how do we make it accessible past that? How do we allow people to join from anywhere in the world? How do we allow people to feel like they can access the technology without feeling like it's going to create an anxiety attack in them? Because it's a huge change. They didn't grow up with technology. Like it's crazy what it is today. And so it was the whole idea of like, just support.
Yeah.
Like it's not a transaction, it's a transformation. We're not trying to make sales. We're trying to positively impact people's lives so that they can stay in independence longer and have a higher quality of life. So that was like my first taste of it. And I think truthfully, if you don't have that component of how to hold integrity in your business, work for other people. Find the things that you like and don't like, see the things that they're doing that you're like, whoa, I would never want to do it that way. Experience it. Like I had so many negative experiences personally, and I would never want my independent contractors, my teachers to feel that way. And so that has really helped inform how I operate business. And then I really just correlated that to the creative agency. It's the same principles, right? It's leading with authenticity and what is your intention. It all comes back to intention, right? Like Are you just trying to make sales? You're just trying to make money? Or you're trying to impact? You're trying to help people? And if you lead with your why, if you lead with your intention, I find that you can always hold the integrity in the business.
Oh, this is so good, because this is like, anyone who's a spiritual entrepreneur listening to this, like, come back to this episode and take notes, because what Christina just said is the essence of what is going to allow your business to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And I 1,000,000% agree with that, because what I found very early on in just what I do is that there's, branding yourself as a psychic can go literally one of two ways. People either think you're a scam, or people really want to know all of it, right?
Yes.
But even in the ones, let's say, that really believe in it, they're still coming to you thinking that you know more about them than they do. And I didn't like that right off the bat. And so when I went through a program to teach me how to just literally read energy, that was one of the things that we had to do, was we had to go out and watch and review different mediums and psychics on YouTube, and just take away what we liked and what we would do differently. And I think that's such a valuable and important thing that you shared, because it's really going to help you to find your lane, and it's going to help you to show up in a different way than somebody else did, while also being integral and authentic to you, right? We're not all going to do the same thing the same way. But when you talk about leading with your why, that's like the key component there, right there, because you're going to, especially just starting your business, you're probably going to be doing a lot of things for free. You're going to spend a lot more time talking to people about what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it than you're necessarily going to make a sale. And that doesn't mean you can't make the sale, but people are going to build more trust in you and what you do, because you actually just care about them versus how much they're going to pull out of their wallet. And the one thing that I've really taken away being a business owner from all the pandemic stuff is that people want to be seen. They've been isolated, they've been segregated, they've been pushed aside in whatever instances. And people just want to be seen. They want to know that you actually care about them, because we're hearing from all different areas that this is the only way to do things. And people are like, regardless of your stance, it's like, but I don't agree with that. I don't agree with piece A or piece B or piece C. And then people still feel divided and unseen. And so when you take that time to just see people and genuinely help them and just be like a human being, right? Like, just because we're online and we're computer to computer doesn't mean we can't take that extra couple minutes, even in the DMs, right? One thing that I really take the time to make sure that I do to the best of my ability is, when people follow me, I'll go and I'll send them a voice message and just like take a moment to scroll their profile and like check out their name and see who they are, and just like say, hey, like, I'm so grateful to have you here. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'm sending you so much love. And it's like, I have had more people stay in my community and then even come buy from me because I actually just cared who they were versus whether or not they were going to stay a part of my world. And that's something that I feel is such a key foundational part in anyone growing a business, and just anyone genuinely on a personal development journey right now, right? You're likely outgrowing people in your life, not because you're better or worse or they're better or worse, but because you just don't align anymore. And so the one thing that people then find is that, oh, well, my circle's getting thinner, or my group's getting smaller, or I don't know who to talk to anymore. But it's like, if you just take that genuine piece of like being a human and talking to humans, you're going to find the right people to fill your circle, to be your soul tribe. And it's like, and then they also want that from you. So it's only a benefit in your growth. So I really love that you share that, because it's something that I feel like, especially as business owners, we get to talk more about, and just the integrity of who we are. There's so many ways we can be swayed because, money is printed left, right, and center. It's easy to make money nowadays, but it's like, but to what cost do you want to make it? And exactly. I think that's something you really just nailed in, and it's so important.
Yeah. And I've had like mentors in the past, right, that were bad decisions because they were of that very masculine energy, sales vibe, right? And I was like, I don't want to be that pushy. Like, I believe in connection. Like I want to get to know the person. They are not a number. They are a name to me. And I think that's so important. And it's really easy to get caught up in that because, oh, make money fast, make it in 60 days, get 6 figures instantly, like all of these crazy things. And I'm like, but exactly what cost?
Yeah.
Like what are you sacrificing to then do that? Right. You can grow an authentic business by just being yourself, by being true, by having the clear intention of wanting to help people without sacrificing your values. And I think that's one thing this like new entrepreneurs especially need to spend time with is what is your core values as a business, right? Like what is your brand's personality? Like if your brand was to come to life, personify it. What does that look like? How do they act? How do they interact with another human being? And then come and show up from that place every single day. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in all of the other things that are fast and quick cash and all of those things. And you just got to lead with your heart. And if you do that, you're not going to be in business for 6 months. You're going to be in business for 60 years or as long as you want, right? And you're going to have the community that supports you and allows you to grow and expand and change and pivot because they're there for you. They believe in you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that was so good. Okay, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
How has intuition played a role in your choices, your decision, and the clarity of following the path of what calls to you and speaks to you in your life?
Oh, I have a beautiful story if you have a sec, because this was my biggest intuition moment. I had gotten an athletic scholarship to go to university. And again, going back to the whole money piece, I was a very expensive child because I was in so many sports and sports cost a lot of money. So, as a high school grade 12 student, I was like, I need to get an athletic scholarship to give back to my parents all of the money they spent on me. Like, what was it for? Well, it was for a lot of things. First of all, the teamwork, the character development, the fun. Like, there were so many other things, but I didn't have that mindset at the time. I was like, they put all this money into me. I need to make this money back. I had to get an athletic scholarship. So I did. I got an athletic scholarship. I went to that school. My coach was verbally and emotionally abusive. It was terrible. The experience was awful. I hated every day. It was just devastating. And so by the end of the season, I was in therapy at this time, God bless, because I needed it. And I was like, wow, like, I don't think I can do this again. But I was like, oh, but like, I can't lose my scholarship. Like if I quit the team, I lose my scholarship. And I was like, oh, and I don't want to be a burden. Like it's so hard. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And my gut just kept telling me, my intuition said, like, you are going to lose yourself if you stay here. You're going to go into the deepest depths of mental health deterioration. I was already depressed at this point because of how terrible it was. And I said, you're not going to make it out. I said, you need to leave now. And I said to myself, this is my whole identity. Like I've been an athlete my whole life. If I quit varsity, that's it. It's like I lose my scholarship, I lose my title, my identity, who I was. And so I couldn't shake that gut check, that intuition that said, if you stay here, you're never getting out. Yeah. And so I quit the team, and it was probably the hardest decision I've ever made. And that next year, right when it was the season of the sport, I went into my yoga teacher training instead. And so all that time I would have spent training, I went and did my yoga teacher training. And it was the best decision I've ever made, And it was the hardest one. And everything told me mentally not to, and everything told me in my heart and in my gut that I had to. And it was the choice to listen to my heart and my gut that helped me get to where I am. And I'm forever thankful. And get out of your head and into your heart. It's the best thing you can do.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So vulnerable and raw. And I feel like so many people are going to relate to that on a multitude of different levels, because what you just shared is how you were so rooted in an identity of, purpose and giving back to your parents and, ultimately showing up for the thing that you strive for so many years of your life. And no matter whether, to anyone listening, whether it's the mom or the wife or the coworker or the boss or the whatever title that you're hanging on to that in your gut and your heart is so wrong for you at this time. I am not condoning wives or mothers leaving their children or families. That is not what I'm saying. But like in the pursuance of something for you, right? So if like you're the mom and you want to be the artist, but you don't have the time for it, and you're so rooted in needing to take care or whatever that is, right? It's like what you just shared is not only how powerful it is for you to just listen to yourself, period, but what happens on the other side of listening to that. And it might not be an immediate 12 hours in kind of thing, but it gave you the space, which I feel like is really important to just bring the awareness to, is it you trusting in yourself to do the thing that you knew in your heart was better for you than what your mind was telling you. It gave you the space to be able to discover and to look and to see and just to have other options become available for you. Because I had only imagined that if you would have stayed, there was no time to do anything else, right? And so it's really a full circle moment, and that's only going to be one of many for you. And you've already shown how you pivoted with that, right? You went into the thing that you loved and it led you to something else that you loved, and you just continue to follow that growth, but you have the space to do it, which is so beautiful. And I think that's the part that's really overlooked, is one that we have this instant gratification that we're constantly like seeking. Oh, the likes, the follows, the this, the that, the money in the bank, the right now, the automatic thing, right? But it's about the space. It's about giving yourself the space. And that might be a day, a month, a year. It's irrelevant, the timeline. But giving yourself that space allows you to pull back and say, okay, now what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Not what am I supposed to do? What do I want to do? And that's like the journey and the evolution of life. So, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm honored. And this space is so important. Exactly what it is. And it's also what my yoga teacher training taught me in that moment, which was beautiful, is the sitting with yourself. If you don't get quiet enough to hear your own thoughts and your own dreams and your own desires, you can never tap into them. So create the space and find the stillness or the slowness to hear yourself, and then move forward. And that's a beautiful combination.
I love that. Well, Christina, I want to give you the floor. How can they be a part of your world? What do you have going on right now? Let them know all the things.
Yes, thank you so much. So the easiest way to really connect with me is through my personal Instagram. It's at Christina.DeFranco. And from there, I have links to my 2 companies. So if you're an older adult or you have chronic pain and want to join in the virtual wellness studio, it's linked there. And same thing with my creative agency if you're looking to get into entrepreneurship and grow a little bit more. And then I'd love for you guys to listen to the podcast. I have a podcast called If Only Entrepreneurs. It's on just about every podcast platform, and Rylee June has an interview coming out on my podcast very shortly, so you can go hear all of her goodness there as well.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure to have all the links in the show notes so that you guys can go and check her out. You're doing amazing work in this world. I want to just thank you so much for sharing your time and your stories and your energy with us today. I know that everyone listening is definitely going to get something really valuable out of today's episode. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's such an honor and a privilege. Thank you all for listening as well and taking the time to be with us.
Yeah. Until next time, guys, don't forget to find the magic in today.
Hey, before you go, I wanted to take a moment to just thank you so much for tuning in with me each and every week. If you weren't already aware, new episodes drop on Mondays. If you could please be so kind as to screenshot this episode, just tag me on Instagram at Rylee June with your biggest takeaway, or if you know someone who could really use the insight and guidance provided to you in this session today, I would love for you to go ahead and share this directly to them. I look forward to continuing to bring you insight, guidance, and self-mastery activation tools that you can implement into your life now to truly evolve and become the divine expander that you are. All right, I cannot wait to chat with you soon. And remember, don't forget to go and find the magic in today.